Welcome back to the Enlightened Misfits podcast, the space where old souls, cycle breakers, and visionaries know who they are and are here to do things different. I'm your host, Lauren Perlingi, an intuitive human design guide and trauma informed healer. In this episode, I am joined by Chris, an energy healer, spiritual counselor, and psychic medium devoted to deep soul healing and personal transformation. Chris works with old souls and survivors of narcissistic abuse to release trauma held in the energetic body, restore balance, and reconnect to their true essence. So, before we dive into the deeper layers of trauma, intuition, inner child healing, can you share your story, Chris, and what led you to this work that you do today? And how has your personal experience shaped the way that you understand healing on an energetic and soul level?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me because I feel just this is such a perfect match to the kind of work we both do, and just putting that out in the world just feels really right. But my story, I feel, evolved. It really just by me tripping, falling flat on my face, and having it smashed into the mud over and over and over again. It was, a lot of trauma, but I didn't realize it as trauma. It was my normal. I grew up with two very narcissistic parents, so we were in this narcissistic family dynamic that felt like my normal. So I grew up always feeling like I was a problem and that I was a bad kid, and well, while I won't say that I was in any way perfect, I was still a kid. So there was a lot of abuse there, physical, emotional. It was challenging. You would think that once I got to my adult years, it would have improved. And in some ways it did. I wasn't getting hit anymore, but the emotional stuff was still there, and it was rather intense. But then when I started to have my own family, my father hit my first child when he was 2 years old.
Oh,
And
wow.
that I feel should have been my I'm done, and I should have walked away then. But I wasn't emotionally there yet. I was still, dealing with the trauma of my own upbringing. That while that time period was challenging, I decided to forgive my father and even my mother, who was incredibly toxic, trying to convince my son it never happened. And, much like my own childhood would have been.
Right.
And I gave them another 8 years. I didn't know that was going to be a time period. I didn't feel like it was they were on probation. I just wanted a relationship with my family, and I really tried. But in that 8 years, it was still the same cycle. And, because any kind of abuse cycle, just you're just in that until you choose not to be. And then one day my dad threatened to hit my husband. And I said, no, I'm not doing this anymore. And I cut them
Wow.
off. And it was a very hard, I'm done. I,
Yeah.
I blocked them from everything I could. Um, then I just went into panic mode, because when you've been punished your entire life by people who have hurt you in every way possible,
Right.
and now you cut them off, the first thing is fear. So my nervous system was just in this hyper vigilance that I didn't recognize. I just now was anxious for the first time in my life because I was terrified. What are they going to do to me? How are they going to try and hurt me? Was where
Right.
I was at. So I went to therapy. That was my first step of really just unpacking narcissism, narcissistic abuse, and validating a lot of my experiences and my feelings, and really seeing how textbook narcissists both of them were in different ways. They were on different ends of the spectrum. My dad is overt, my mother is covert. But the magic in this for me is it absolutely stepped me into this world of awakening, because as I started to heal and calm my nervous system, all of my abilities, my clairs started coming online. I started seeing people in spirit. I started hearing people in spirit. I started getting these downloads. I didn't know they were downloads at the time, but what I thought was just kind of an intuitive aspect. I would have called myself an intuitive empath, but very quietly. Like, my background's in business. My parents met on Wall Street. I was groomed for
Right.
that kind of life. I worked in New York. I did that life. I did very well, but it obviously wasn't me, because I'm now this completely different person. And I'm so grateful for it. I will say that. But it took the hardest decision of my life was cutting them off. And My only regret is not doing it sooner because it changed my life for the better. I had a glow up in every way.
Yeah. Let's kind of talk a little bit. I hear a lot of people, especially because it seems like narcissism is really huge right now, which I love the awareness because, a little bit of like my backstory, like when I filed for divorce, God, how long has it been now?
Mhm.
Well, I'm married again, but doing some healing through that year. It's been 6 years, 7 years, something like that. I can't even remember. Um, that I didn't even know that I was married to, and I'm not gonna say diagnose him narcissist like a narcissist. However, he was textbook and covert, like textbook everything. And I was like, what is a narcissist? Like, what does that mean? I just, of course, like one does scrolling through,
Yeah.
social media, it started popping up. And I'm like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. And at that point I was still victim, like in the victim cycle of like poor me kind of thing. So I was looking for answers like to understand it. But then I always had this sense of like empathy of like, well, maybe he doesn't know, or maybe he's unaware. But then it's like, I feel like for when I'm listening to your story, I'm like I'm hearing the same like you wish you did it sooner. And I feel like a lot of people. Shit, I probably would say the same thing. Going back to what I know now, I'm like, damn, why how can I not see what was happening? Like I attracted him for obviously a lesson, a reason. And it was every relationship, it was like that. It was emotional, physical, mental abuse, right? My parents didn't abuse me, but they emotionally and mentally abused me. So it's kind of like the same thing. I actually say, which is probably not like I probably shouldn't say this, but I say it anyway, that I would rather somebody beat the shit out of me than ever mess with my mind or my emotions.
Yes. Yes, I've said
And
that
like,
myself.
yeah, and people are like, "What?" Like, and I'm like, "Well, you don't understand. You
Yeah.
just don't get it, right?" So, can you kind of talk a little bit about like what that looked like for you when you said, you wish you did it sooner? Like, what was kind of going on through your mind until you were like, this is enough. This is like, what was that moment for you of like, I'm not doing this anymore? Like what did that moment feel like to you? And like, how did you kind of help, like, besides therapy, like, what did you do? Like, what were some of the steps that you did? If somebody's like listening to this, well, when people are listening to this, like, if they're in this situation, like, what would be something that you would say, like, what's one step that they can do to kind of move forward so they don't get stuck in this place?
Well, I like how you brought up about having that time of victim mentality because we often say, don't be the victim. But I feel like when we're in these situations, being in that victim energy, because I work with energy, it's
Yeah,
important we have that at least for a time because we're grieving. So we need to
right,
look at those things that have happened to us that were horrible and hurt and allow for that pain to make its way through and out of our body because
right.
otherwise it's just going to get stuck and stagnant. So it's more of allow it and help yourself move past it. So for me in the beginning, yes, therapy was a big part. Reading is huge for me. I've always really enjoyed reading. So I probably pulled every book on narcissism there was at the time, especially having narcissistic parents and really just unpacking a lot of it, unpacking my feelings, validating so much of what I was experiencing. But really, the key for me was regulating my nervous system. So uh, I didn't even know what breath work was at the time, but I was doing it. I was just really taking deep, intentional breaths, making sure I was filling my lungs, not even recognizing how for so many years I wasn't filling my lungs completely breathing because I was constantly in fight or flight. So
Yeah,
recognizing that was really important. Tapping, emotional freedom technique,
yeah,
is amazing. I felt that was very important, especially because if you've cut off a narcissistic parent, and most people can speak to this, they try to creep in and they do it in very toxic ways. They don't come to you like, gosh, I'm so sorry. Can we try and work this out? And I forget the sorry, like, oh, can we try and work this out? They don't come to you that way. They come to you guilting you, shaming you, anger, lashing out. So my mother, even still, it's been almost 9 years, and she will still try and get through. And someone I
Wow.
blocked, and
Wow.
it's just very toxic. Now, I
Yeah.
understand a lot of this is coming from her own pain, and
Right.
that's for her to process,
Hmm.
but that doesn't mean I have to accept that because like I said, it's very toxic. There is no attempt to try and do better and be better. It's just wanting to make me feel bad. So I go and apologize. It's that old part of me, that old routine. Let me apologize for something you did to hurt me so we can just move forward. It's choosing our own power, and it's taking it back. So nervous system regulation, I feel, is huge. Breath work helps with that. EFT helps with that. I work a lot with the chakras, so and I read chakra energy. So
Hmm.
I didn't recognize at the time that my healing my chakras was helping me heal uh, my nervous system as well. But at the time, I had had an autoimmune condition of my thyroid, and I have since healed that because I grew up in a family that I was criticized for my voice. I was criticized for the way I spoke, what I said. So to have developed into a thyroid condition it now is in no way surprising to me. But the fact that I was able to heal it because I got out of that toxic system was very empowering. So recognizing that healing is not linear, it's always in layers. This didn't all just happen right away. It was very incremental. But the more we do to calm our nervous system, the more we're able to make better decisions for ourselves as well.
Yeah, I was going to say I definitely can resonate with the nervous system. Like I wish now I work, very heavily with the nervous system, with my clients and stuff, but it wasn't until a couple years ago that I was like, why? Like I wish somebody would have said to me, "Now, let me help you with your nervous system. That's what's going on here." It's like nobody ever told me this when I first started. It was like, you know, my first, my first mentor was a healer, and she kind of like helped me process, the narcissism and, from, my mom, and my healing actually kind of, my mom is more open to, like, she goes to therapy now. Like my mom's more open about communicating. So is my dad. He goes to therapy. Like my mom
Wow.
listens to she told me the other week, she goes, "Yeah, I listen to your podcast." And I was like, "What?"
Wow.
So it's like interesting. The more healing that I do, my mom is starting to realize she does have a lot of shame and guilt around a lot of things, I'm sure. And I always remind her that, Mom, I chose to be here. I chose you as a mom and dad. Like, she still thinks a little bit when I talk about like that stuff. She doesn't truly believe me. That's okay. Like, but it's just, I don't want her to have more shame and guilt. She already has her own shame and guilt from hearing my story and, like watching what I went through, knowing what I went through from my perspective now. So I can understand that she probably has all of that, and then boundaries too, huge boundaries.
Mm.
She's like she's taught me huge lessons around boundaries. So and this but it's different for my father-in-law, my current husband. I always say current husband, and he goes, "Why do you say that on podcast episodes?" I'm like, "Well, you're like my husband, like currently." It's not like it's
Yeah.
going to change, but
Yeah.
you're my husband. But lately, actually recently, we had to disconnect from him because it was so ungodly toxic. And I was like,
Mhm.
there was things that were said, and I used to always say I'm not part of your flying monkeys. Like that's just not me. I'm married into this family, and I'm not part of this dynamic. But it really kept me sick for a very long time. Like I would always get sick when I was around him because I was not speaking, like my voice, I would just kind of stay quiet. And I'm like, this is what reminds me of like when I was a kid. Like my own parents don't do this to me anymore. So it's just like, what's going on? Like that's what I was like, what's going on? So yeah, so it was, and I now have more empathy and compassion and understanding for my husband because I actually was I lived it with him for the last couple years, and I realized, oh my God, this is true. Like somebody that does not want to heal, somebody that has a lot of emotional pain and does not, like, to the point that he tried to confuse me, and it's like you can't confuse me. Like I know exactly what happened, and I'm just like, it just was very mind-blowing. So I'm relating that story to yours to understand, like I couldn't even imagine to have to grow up and live with somebody like that. I mean, I've had my own experiences with it, but it, that's it's, I think, a forever journey, right?
It is
Yeah.
absolutely, and,
Yeah.
and to your point, I do believe also that we choose our parents
Hmm.
because it's for the lessons we want to learn to help our souls
Right.
evolve.
Yeah.
And my soul absolutely has evolved in this lifetime through a lot of pain, through a lot of heartache.
Right.
I
Yeah.
but I can say the first time I remember learning like we choose our parents, the first thing I asked was why would I do that to myself?
Yeah.
Because I just felt like my parents hated me. I still feel like they do,
Yeah.
because they don't understand what unconditional love is. Their idea of love is so broken because it was given to them in such a broken manner. Narcissism is a generational pattern, and it
Right.
takes somebody to finally say, enough. I'm breaking this cycle. But
Yeah.
in order to break a cycle, you have to do it with another generation. Me,
Right.
I'm doing it with my own children. I
Yeah.
know that ship's not even in the water as far as my own parents, and that's okay. They don't have the ability to be self-reflective, and it's hard to do a healing journey. We know that.
Right.
Healing journey is miserable in a lot of ways, but it is the one way we can evolve the most because we allow ourselves to look at all those dark parts of ourselves, the parts of ourselves that we don't want to, and say, okay, I love you still, and we're gonna get through this, and
Right.
we're gonna move forward. But yeah, it's been a journey.
Yeah. I do. I love how you just said that we heal the narcissism with another generation. And I
Mhm.
literally, when you said that, it clicked for me that the reason I used my daughter for a very long time, she's 6 now. I used her as my why for the reason because I couldn't figure
Mhm.
out how I could do it for myself until I now have I do it for myself first, obviously, and then
Yeah,
I do it for my daughter, and then I just do it for the collective and just like my mission, right?
yeah.
So I think that was really powerful that you said that because I feel like for people that, and I'm not saying that I guess my thing is like for people that are listening that maybe don't have children or they're step parents to a child that maybe had gone through this, or, because my husband is a stepfather to my daughter, but he's always been there. So like he's been there pretty much half her life.
Mhm.
He's always been there. Her bio dad just came back around probably when she was like 2.5, 3. But Joey, which is like she looks at him spiritually, like financially, emotionally, mentally as her dad. She's lucky. I always tell her, you have two dads. Now,
Yeah.
your role with your bio dad, I can't tell you that. Like I can't, I don't see it yet, like what the role was besides he's simply that's what you chose. Not that she asks, but she has been very curious of like, mommy, why do I have two daddies? And some of my friends only have one. Why do I
Mhm.
have two like not mommies, but she says his girlfriend. And I'm like, well, you're just lucky. Like I don't really know what to say to that right yet because it's like you're just lucky that you get to have two people, like four people that love you, obviously more, but like
Yeah.
parental figures that she has chosen. And it's just interesting that she goes, oh, okay. Just like how, and I'm like looking at her, like, I know your soul is a lot older than mine, so you should have this answer. Why are you asking me?
I love that. It's true.
Yeah.
But what an age appropriate answer, for
Yeah.
a child at 6 to hear more people to love you. I mean,
Yeah.
that in itself is a gift.
Yeah.
How lovely
Yeah.
to have that as a foundation. And she'll of course will have lessons around that, but I love how you said, she was your why. I think so many of us that are cycle breakers, our kids are our why.
Yeah.
And at least in the beginning.
Yeah.
And because we didn't have the strength to do it for ourselves. And
Right.
there's something about, especially the mama bear, you do not get to do this to my kids. No.
Right. Yes. Yeah. 100%. So, when you with your clients or when somebody like if you're just, in a session with somebody that's experienced narcissistic abuse, what specific like energetic layers or maybe I should say like imprints does it tend to leave on the body? And how does this like show up in their life like every day?
Yeah, it will always depend on the person because
Hmm.
obviously every experience is different. But the way I will read someone's energy, I read the seven chakras. I start with the root and I work my way up to the crown. And I
Okay.
essentially walk into each chakra like kind of like it feels like I'm exploring like a museum, like
Okay.
what is it going to show me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the
Yeah.
body has a story to tell. So if I like starting at the root because I want to see if they're grounded or not. And if they are, how are they grounded? Because we all ground differently. If they're
Hmm.
not, is this not serving them? Because sometimes people are not grounded, but it's working for them, especially depending on where they're at in their life. They could be traveling a lot. They could just be very busy, but like I said, in a way that is serving them, supporting their energy. And then I will look for, obviously, if they're not grounded in a way that is not supporting them. So I look for that because a lot of times when it comes to narcissism and narcissistic abuse, someone's not grounded because they don't feel safe. So they don't know how to ground
Right.
themselves and their energy
Yeah.
is not grounded. So because when your root is not grounded, it creates chaos in the rest of the body system. So
Mhm.
that is, like I said, why I start there. And as I work my way up through each chakra, in some ways, I kind of feel like I know what to look for, but it's always a new experience. I always have surprises, but it's always like very validating. Like I was in someone's sacral chakra recently, and I knew very little about her. I just knew she was friends with another client, and how they knew each other, but I knew nothing about this woman outside of the just general stuff. So as I'm in her sacral chakra, and our sacral chakra has a lot to do with our creative energy. And that's what first came up to me for her was creative energy. So I was like, you have a really good artistic eye. I said, I don't know if you're doing something with like photography and as I'm speaking, she's like, I'm actually a graphic designer. I was like, oh, there you go. Can't make that up.
Yeah.
So it's always very interesting. I even had someone recently, she's like, well, how do I know you didn't Google this about me? Because, so many of us can be Googled now. And I was
Yeah.
like, yes, it's such a good question. And I love that question. Keep that in mind as I now go through your chakras and find the stuff you just can't Google. So I have a lot of fun with that.
Yeah.
But so the body always will tell a story. And then each chakra will kind of speak differently depending on their own trauma situation. Um, I always look at how the heart is structured. If someone has strongly guarded their heart, they've been very hurt. Um, I I had a client recently with their throat chakra. While it would open, it was very tight. So we couldn't quite get in, but
Hmm.
the openness told me, okay, there's a willingness. So I felt the tightness, and then I had to feel to the energy of that. Why is this so tight? And then I looked at her and I said, are you often scared of saying the wrong thing? And she's like, all the time. And I said, that's why this is so tight. And then and then feeling past that, where does this come from? She was always criticized for things she said growing up. So now we're working on her throat chakra. Uh, so, while there's generalities like, narcissism, it's very common to have issues with the throat because you were criticized for speaking or not allowed to speak or scared to speak. But
Right.
not everyone will show a tight throat chakra. Some will show a dirty one, a cloudy one, a blocked one. It really always depends on the person and their own experiences and what their body's willing to share. I always respect energetic boundaries. Some people get scared, like, what is she gonna see? And I'm like, if there is some sort of block that
Yeah.
your body doesn't want me to see, it will protect it. But I'll just say, like, hey, this is here. It's connected to this experience or this person, but I'm recognizing that it's not really wanting to be opened right now. And they'll be like, thank you so much. Yes, okay. So
Yeah.
but honestly, I have fun with it because I love one that people allow me to do it.
Yeah.
I love experiencing all these new energies and also giving people the tools to heal. Because as I'm in
Right.
these chakras, I'll look and feel for the stuff like what will help this? Because like let's just say like I gave examples of like breath work. There are people that I'll feel into that and I'm like, nope, breath work is not for you. You'll try it and you'll quit and walk away. So that
Right.
won't
Yeah.
support you. So I like that I could feel into that too. So it's very intuitively guided, spirit guided. It's a beautiful process, and I'm really just grateful to be at this place.
Yeah. That when you were talking, I know like going back to like when I was like first kind of tuning into like my body and how where I can feel it, and mine was always at the root first, and then like it's always like I think it lingers at every different layer at the chakra, but I've always constantly had to work on my throat chakra.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like that, my sacral and my throat. I'm root two, like all three of them. I'm like, sometimes my solar plexus. I mean, I guess it's like I have all of them, but
Yeah.
those three specifically, feeling like safe now, going like more. I'm like probably now. I feel safer in my body than I've ever felt because I just trust my body.
Yeah.
And when I don't listen to my body, I also know what that does. So,
Yep. We all
so
learned that the hard way, right?
yeah. So it's like I'm not, it's like that one time that you learn it. You might learn it again. I always learn things in threes, which
Yeah.
that's how it was. And now I'm like, I'm not learning that. I don't need to learn that in threes anymore because it doesn't need to do that. It just doesn't need to happen. So yeah, I definitely can resonate when you like going in. And I feel like and can you kind of talk a little bit about this? Like if you feel something, like if your chest is hurting or your throat is hurting, is that like your body signaling to like it could potentially like, or if like your hips are hurting, that could potentially be like some energy stuck there too?
100%. It's yeah. Our body whispers before it screams.
Yeah.
And it's always that little stuck energy. And that's why it leads to health stuff. So, if
Right.
you are feeling these pains, like I will never say like, "Oh yeah, go to an energy healer. Go to a doctor, go get that checked out."
Yeah.
But you know, energy over time just it festers and it can become very toxic. So we absolutely have so many different ways that we can help move it, shift it. But if we don't change the patterns within ourselves that created it in the first place, it's just going to come back. Uh,
Right.
or it'll just manifest differently, but similarly. Because when it comes to chakras, they help support each other. So let's just say someone's very depleted in their throat chakra, their heart chakra, and their third eye chakra will very likely jump in to help. Some it's always like as you say in threes, it's interesting that came up because the chakras also help each other in this supportive layer of three. Sometimes they'll go up, down, or that surrounding. So, like if you have a throat issue, it might be the third eye and crown, or it might be the solar plexus and the heart helping the throat. It just depends on how the body is working to support you and what you're going through too, because
Right.
you're pulling the energy from other chakras because those other chakras have the ability to support whatever struggle is going on there. Like for example, a throat chakra might really need the personal power energy of the solar plexus. So then I can't bypass the heart. So it's going to get the heart energy as well as the solar plexus to have more strength and power. But if you need more of that intuitive insight, your third eye is going to come in to help. So it's always dependent on what the body needs. The body is highly intuitive and it's
Right.
pretty amazing, but over time, as you're depleting your chakras and now other chakras are coming to support it, you get pretty depleted overall. So building that energy back up, it takes time. It didn't happen overnight. It doesn't heal overnight. But
Right.
as it does, you feel it. You really feel it. And it's empowering. I love that, especially the clients I have that work with me regularly, where they were that first session versus like 6 months down the road. Their chakras look, feel, it's so different, but they feel it too. It's not just, oh, I'm seeing it and I'm telling you this. It's like, no, I feel it. I know it. And that's empowering. I love giving people their power back. Like, here are the tools, go
Yeah.
use them, come back, and we'll see how you are. And they'll be very different energetically.
Yeah. And I love that you speak about it in that way too, because often people in society are like, oh, I'm sick, or here's me. I'm like, if it hurts, oh, what are you not speaking? Or do you need to
Hmm.
have a conversation with somebody and not speaking? Like that happened to me last week. I needed to have a conversation with my husband about something and I didn't say anything. And then my throat started hurting. And I was like, okay, I guess I gotta have this conversation. And then Matt, I didn't take anything. I mean, I just took some honey, like to kind of help with just like me talking, like when I'm on podcasts or just in general. But then I had that conversation and it's like, I want to say it's magic, but I know it wasn't. It was more of like having that conversation. And it was more of like fear-based for me, just being able to speak up or like say how I feel and like it being like, you're okay, like everything is okay. Like I still have that stuff come up too. And I think that that's important because a lot of us too, I'm sure you can resonate with this, that it still creeps up. Like, oh, if you say something, you might be criticized. Oh, just be quiet. It's everything, act like everything is okay. And I'm more anxious type, so I will get a little anxious and make a story in my mind when that's not reality. Like that's not going to happen. But it's just reassurance. And my husband does a really good job of that. Like, understanding, where from my past and understanding of like, you're okay. And just simply like, you're okay. You can, and then, he goes, your throat hurts. Do you have to say, it's just funny now because he's like, your throat hurts. Do you have to talk to me about something? I'm like, actually, yeah, I do.
Yeah, but I love that you say that in the way of like, we do have the old stuff come up. We are
Yeah.
on a healing journey. And when the stuff comes up, we often feel like we're failing or we're
Yeah.
frustrated by it. Like, I healed this or I thought I healed this.
Yeah.
There's no reason for this to be coming back. And
Yeah.
and sometimes it's coming back to show you how much you've healed, that you're not having the same responses anymore, that you know how to self-soothe, that you know how to process it and not just ignore it or whatever older pattern you have. We tend to have it come up, but we respond differently. And then we
Right.
recognize we've changed that pattern. And that is so empowering. But yeah, none of us are immune from those those elements of the past. It's more
Right.
of how are we responding to them now? Because it's pretty much guaranteed for anyone on a healing journey, they're not responding in the same way. It just
Right.
can be a little scary when they show up because we worry about getting to that place again. Like when it comes up for
Yeah.
me, I worry about getting sick again because my autoimmune disease kept me very sick for a long time, and that was debilitating, especially as a mother. So to be beyond that, but if something comes up, I'm like, no, 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 I'm not accepting this. It's never going to happen again. So,
Yeah.
but it's interesting when that fear comes up, like, oh, okay, I see you. I'll walk with you. Let's have a seat and
Yeah.
let's process this.
Yeah. And I love that you said that too, because that's kind of like what was happening. And I'm like, oh, no, no, no. Like, this is not okay. And it was like, universe, nope, it's not happening. And you're right. It was simply that to show me, I think at the time that all this happened, I believe it was maybe just being hard on myself. And then this experience happened that I was like, oh, okay. So it was just honoring like where I was
Yeah.
and how much, I have healed. And it's interesting to me. And I say interesting because people are like, oh, I healed that. And I'm like, you keep saying that. The universe is going to show you
Yeah.
that you must have not healed that enough. So I'm just
Yes.
saying, like, if anybody listening, if you tell people that, or you're saying, or you're thinking, or you're saying it out loud that you're healed, no, none of us are healed. And the universe show. I think I probably did that at some point in my experience. And the universe is like, oh yeah, you're healed. Okay. We're going to show you how much you have not healed, what you think
Yes.
you healed.
Challenge accepted. Yes.
Right.
It's
It's like the universe has a very short vocabulary. So be it. And it's literally what will happen.
It's so true
Yeah.
because I think also when we are in any kind of trauma situation, toxic situation, we want to heal from it like yesterday.
Yep.
So we
Yes.
don't give ourselves the time and the patience that it takes to heal. And oftentimes because our nervous system is in this hypersense state
Right.
and we want to feel better. So there's nothing wrong with that. And
Right.
but to just say like, "Oh, I healed that."
Yeah.
I often find we're also ignoring something or we've missed something when we're so
Right.
quick to say, oh, I healed that because we want to convince ourselves. But I feel that also sets us up for some disappointment when something comes up to show us, oh, wait, there's a little other thing here that we haven't yet unpacked. It may not be the same lesson, but it will have a very similar energy where it feels the same. And then we
Right.
feel like we failed. So I think, like I said, people who are like, oh, I healed that, they're setting themselves up for some sort of feeling of failure. Or when the
Yeah.
universe decides it wants to introduce a very similar lesson that feels like you're experiencing the same thing over again. But when we get to that place where we don't look at this pass, fail, healed or not, just evolving, I think that's the important part of this.
Right. And the awareness that comes with it. So if it does pop back up, I never really understood in the beginning of, when I first started to truly take my I've always been aware, I feel like. I say this all the time that like I came out of my mom and I just was like, what oh God. Like I chose here, like, oh, like what's this? Like just very conscious and aware. And then of course, experiences and trauma happen that I kind of just silence myself just to kind of stay safe, right?
Yeah.
Um, but when I really took my healing seriously, through many, probably, I don't even know when my actual physical, like maybe like spiritual awakening probably was like 2018, 2017, something like that. I just kind of always had this knowing of like seeing things, you know, but not believing myself because I'm like, oh, I'm just people, I'm crazy. Because I would say things and it's like I started to believe people and that, I'm surprised I didn't end up in like mental institution. But what I connected to like through all of that is I tried the like my mentor said this last week on a call. She said, you can't just scream affirmations at a mirror and believe it. And I think a lot of people, especially society, it's like, oh, say this mantra, say this, say this affirmation. And I'm like, my body is like, I don't fucking believe you, like this is, you
Yeah.
don't believe this. And that's why it was like the same experience was happening over and over again until like you said, it was like the evolving of the experience or the awareness, which I think
Yeah.
was, huge for me anyway.
Yeah, and I like how you bring up about affirmations and that because I feel like affirmations can be very helpful, but
Right.
in that lesson that you just brought up, if your body is resisting it, there's
Yeah.
a reason for it. You can
Yeah.
go into that. Let's see where's the resistance and why. I remember when I first started doing affirmations, I felt ridiculous. I didn't
Yeah.
believe a single one, and I felt all of it in my body. And I felt the challenge of that. It probably took about 3 months because I was dedicated. I was like, I heard this could help me. I will do it.
Yeah.
So I did. It was, but 3 months is when I started to at least start to see it in my reality. Like, okay, now I see the shift. But I can understand why people, after doing it for like a couple weeks, are like, this is ridiculous. Why am I doing this?
Right.
So, but it's because the body is resisting it and
Right.
you're having this like inner conflict with your body and it's allowing that program to shift and change, because all of this is like, it's like subconscious mind reprogramming, and there's two
Right.
ways to do that: through repetition. That's why affirmations over time help, or using something like hypnosis. But it's really, what is your subconscious mind program, and how can you help yourself in that to not accept it as a program anymore?
Right. Yeah. And I often, and I know like when you say that, that makes it click like, oh, I mean, I kind of already put two and two together of why I always liked Theta Reiki, but it was more of like that being in that theta state and kind of like listen and then listening more too. People say, oh, you need to listen more than you speak. And it's true because if you
Mhm.
listen to somebody, the things they tell themselves. And it was really, I think that was really empowering for me too, because I would always believe that people's projections on me made me feel like it was me that was the problem. I mean, like, if I'm in a situation, I'm half the problem and the other person is half the problem, like in that situation. But it's kind of like, oh, they talk to themselves like this because they wouldn't talk to somebody else like, that if they didn't talk to themselves like that. And I feel like that is really powerful because I'm like, it comes from a place of like, how can I have compassion and have also compassion for myself too. And I think that's, for me, that was really, really important for when I was releasing a lot of my trauma. So, like with your clients, how do you help them safely release trauma? We do very similar work, and I've noticed a lot of people's systems are very overwhelmed and they try to re-traumatize themselves. Like, what do you do in your work that kind of helps clients do this very safely?
Well, again, with the chakra reading, a lot of it is awareness,
Hmm.
because healing, first step is having the awareness to
Right.
any kind of healing.
Yeah.
So when they're able to hear, okay, I see this in your energy body and I knew nothing about them, and
Right.
I'm able to link it, it helps validate them. So I feel like that's such a great first step is the validation and whatever that is. I mean, that's how I work in my work, but people can also help validate themselves through, they could do talk therapy, they can start reading and reading other people's experiences, go into to group type of situations. Like I feel there's like a subreddit on any kind of healing. That was one of the things I did early is like, children of narcissists and children of narcissistic abuse. Like I was going into a lot of that because it was very validating. So if you are in that, still in that hypervigilant state, those smaller things are, I think, very helpful because you're in that process of unpacking. And what you're also doing energetically is you're allowing some of those energetic ties to fall away. They don't become as tight as they were. So you start to relax, hence that connection to the nervous system. So that's how I like to start is because if you try to do too much too soon, the energy body works like a rubber band. So it'll snap right back and then it'll hurt and
Right.
it just won't feel good. So it has to be more subtle. So depending on the person, some people can do more. I guarantee if I have a Virgo sun sign sitting in front of me, they are going to do every single exercise I tell them, and then they're going to feel a lot better and say, "Wow, that was great. It worked. What can I do next?" So I am big on astrology and working with people's energy in terms of the makeup they have created for themselves in this lifetime. There are certain signs that I could even just feel in their energy. I'm like, yep, I'm going to give them this activity and they're not going to do it. All right, next. So I'm feeling into what's going to work. So I really like to be respectful of where somebody is at so
Yeah.
that they'll feel inspired to do something. Because I could give them a list of things that to do and to help, but if I already feel it's not supportive of their energy, I know they're not going to do anything. That doesn't help them. But if I find, and I will even tell them, I was like, I'm feeling resistance to this for you, which means you're going to do it for like a week and then quit and say it didn't work. I said, so when that comes up, hear my voice right now, keep going because it gets better. And I've had many people say, I got to that place and I remember you saying, and I said, yeah, there it is. So, we all have that in us. But
Yeah.
some of us are a little more dedicated than others, by no fault, really, of just this
Right.
is just how we are. And that is okay. It doesn't make it right or wrong. It's just what works for us. So I really like to be able to work and support the energy body of the person I'm working with.
Yeah, and I love that you bring astrology into it because I'm always been obsessed with astrology. And I'm just sitting here thinking, I guess I mean, my sun sign is Aquarius, and I vote like talk therapy never worked for me because I
Yeah.
always just, I'm like, you want me to talk to somebody else? I don't even like at that point, don't even like people. Like I don't
Yeah.
even, I love humanity, but like I don't like humans all the time. I don't like to be, I call it like, I'm too much peopling, like,
I like that you brought up about an Aquarius and that, yeah, talk therapy is tough for an Aquarius, but
yeah.
group therapy is actually more helpful for them.
Yeah, I've
So,
always liked to be in groups,
yeah,
communities. That's why I have my own
it's more
community because
supportive.
I like it. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm also a Pisces moon and rising too,
Oh,
so
yeah.
you know,
Yep. Yep. So community is very supportive for you, but your
yeah,
Aquarius sun is actually driving that as far as what helps you in that healing space. Because there are a lot of modalities out there. So I think it's very important for people to hear if something didn't work, it doesn't mean it doesn't work, that there's something wrong with them. It just,
right,
there's another modality that better supports their energy. So
right.
that's why I feel astrology is so important because it says a lot. Because as soon as you said Aquarius, I was like, yeah, no, that's not, that is not going to be a talk therapy situation. But put you in
Yeah,
a group, put you in like your tribe, you're
yeah.
going to feel really good.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean like my mom always stuck like put made me go to oh you need to go to a therapist and it's just like I don't I've been to therapy, talk therapy my whole life and it's like it got to a point that I would just tell them what they wanted to hear and it wasn't
Yeah.
helping me at all and I'm like okay they don't I would say one thing and it's like well to go do this and I'm like I already did that and it didn't work, like, so let's try something else. And then it was the medication too, like,
Mhm.
oh, we're going to stick you on this medication, that medication. I'm like, not taking that, like, for like
Yeah.
my whole life, it was like having, at the time diagnosed when I was like, I think I was 6 or 7, some really young, really, really young with ADD. And then my mom, without knowing better, I guess, just stuck me on medication. And which is why I'm so resistant now. I won't take, it's like I won't take anything. Like I was like, let me try to do that. Like if I have a headache, like a third eye headache or something, I will wait until the least possible moment to take something because it's just like that reminder of like that control of like I want to be able to have control, you know. But sometimes you just need to take some, ibuprofen.
Yeah, as you say that, when you said third eye headache, I feel that shoot right down to your sacral. So there's a
Yeah.
connection to hormonal imbalance,
Yeah.
just as a
Yeah,
heads
that
up
was,
there.
yeah, yeah, that's actually I just discovered that through working with my GYN, which is kind of like,
Hmm.
he's not really holistic, but like he does things that are more on the holistic side. And he had just, he had said to me, I think we need to do like a somewhat of like they don't do the full panel. Like I have to go to
Hmm.
naturopath, but which I'm going to see like where my levels are off and to
Yeah.
see like, what, because through my experience too, is like when I was on birth control, which is how my daughter happened, getting off birth control, I had a
Hmm.
blood clot, which was from my birth control. And then, obviously that was, it was triggered by like the estrogen and, it was the patch too. So it's like, well, can't be on birth control the rest of my life. So I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have all these babies, but no, like I think it's more now, it's more like you said, hormonal, which
Yeah.
was just brought into my awareness, just about how I feel too and my energy levels.
Yeah.
The last couple, I guess it's been since October, maybe. So yeah, you're right on. You didn't even know that. See, look, real life, like real life. She didn't even know it. I didn't tell her any of
No.
that.
Anytime there's like two things that my body tends to do. One is if somebody tells me a symptom, I feel what chakra it's connected to. So that's what you
Oh,
told
okay.
me about
Yeah.
the head, and then I
Yeah.
felt like my body just zipped down, and I was in my sacral. So I was like, why am I here? And then I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
and then I heard hormones. So that's one thing. The other thing is if somebody tells me a name of anybody.
Hmm.
I can literally jump into that energy of that person and tell you about that person. I will never go around. I always feel I have to state this because it's just an ethical thing.
Yeah.
I will
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
go around into that person's energy because that would be draining for them. It's always through the person that has said the name. So it's,
Right.
because then you're respecting the boundaries of energy.
Yes.
So, but
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
like I said, it's just all of a sudden it's like, yep, I know who you're talking about. Let's go. What do you want to talk about?
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, my body just responds now. So it's fun and it's exciting, but it also makes it next to impossible to have normal relationships.
Right. I hear you. Yes. Yeah. Some of my friends, like, they'll ask me, oh, can you read this person's energy? And I love that you just said that, like ethics too. And I'm like, no, did that person say I can read their energy? No, I'm
No.
not doing that. Like, yes, I've tried to do that, before, and the universe showed me how, very quickly, Lauren, you're not doing that. You're not doing it the right way, So yeah, no, the boundaries of,
Yes.
but I like how you said you can go through that person because it's like, depending on like what the situation is, I can give them intuitive
Yes.
insights to
Yes. Exactly.
how they personally can move forward
Yes.
or what, like
Exactly.
not necessarily like, like that you see all over. Like, and I love tarot card readings and I love readings like that. But no, I'm not going to, if you're asking me if your ex is coming back, I'm going to ask you, why are you asking me that? Because you already
Yeah.
know.
Exactly.
Don't
Yes.
ask me questions like that. Like, those questions, I'm like, seriously. I never like those questions because it's like, why do you want to? And here's me like trying to coach them. Why do you want to go back? What's coming up? Like, here we are in this like
Yeah.
inner
Well,
child conversation.
you don't, I think we're similar in this. We recognize when people are giving their power away and we want to
Yeah,
help them take
yeah,
that back.
yeah,
Because when we start asking questions, we're stepping outside of like that. Like, what's going to
yeah,
happen? What should I do? I will never tell someone you should do this
yeah,
because
no,
that'd be me taking their power away. But I will
yeah,
help them. Like, let's get you to a place where you feel empowered by your decision. And I'll
Right.
see paths. I'll see like, okay, I feel this supportive, I feel that supportive, but everything always changes on our paths based on our choices and our decisions. So sometimes the path we're on, even though it feels good, doesn't mean it's the one we're going to stay on. Because again, we have free will. That is our God-given gift, and we
Yeah.
should absolutely use that. So to come to anyone and say, what should I do? All you're doing is giving your power away.
Yes, and that is huge too, especially, kind of circling this back to like narcissistic abuse. Like that's that arguing, that was like the biggest thing that I remember of learning, especially with my husband's father, is I always felt like I needed to defend myself.
Yeah.
And he is an
Mm,
Aries, right? He is an Aries sun. And I'm telling you, he is probably the only Aries that I know that likes to argue. Like literally that he does that as a hobby. And I'm like, my husband has warned me about it. All he likes to do is argue. So I would keep quiet, keep quiet, keep quiet. My throat would hurt, keep quiet, keep quiet. And then, I started speaking up, and then I started to be that one that was like pushing back. And, um, going back to like speaking about astrology, I was like, why does he like to argue all the time? Like, what? That is like, and then I realized I'm giving him my energy, my
yeah.
power
The supply.
to make him see something that he's never going to see. Like when I spoke, it's frequency, right? Like
Mhm.
I'm speaking to I might as well just speak to a wall that's not going to talk back because like he can't hear me. And I'm like, finally, it was like, a couple months ago that I was like, he's never going to hear me. So, and that's
No,
okay. And it's like so much, like so freeing to know that, having like learning that lesson and being very thankful for it. Like, thank you for showing me that I was giving my power away because, I was constantly depleted and I couldn't figure out why. I'm doing all the right stuff and realizing that was part of the reason why. I'm sure the universe showed me time and time again and I just wasn't listening. I wasn't watching it, but it's like now I feel peaceful, you know.
yeah.
In that realm, and so does my husband. It's been peaceful, like it doesn't, there's no chaos, there's no conflict, there it is just no none of it. And I think,
It's so nice when we have that peace.
right. It just to be I can't even describe the peace that it feels like. I mean, granted, the family dynamic looks a little bit different, but everybody in his family respects it. And I think that that is huge and
Yeah.
how it shows their character. I mean, I'm not there in the room when they're there with him, but from what I see, they're very respectful of it, both of our decisions. Usually I always hear the opposite of, you know, getting like, siblings shaming other siblings because of,
Yes, that happened to
that.
me.
And I think that that is huge to his brothers, like his brothers and his sisters, sister, I should say, perspective on like how they're on their own healing journey. And I think that that is really, really powerful too.
Well, and they see it too. I mean,
Yeah.
I like as you talk about your father-in-law, like and the arguing and the not listening, all he wants is to be right. That's where
Right.
the arguing comes from. And
Right.
when it comes to that, like I see a 6-year-old little boy who was always wanting to be right because he was always told he was wrong. So
Right.
it comes from somewhere,
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean we have to tolerate it. We learn to have compassion for it. And we
Yeah.
recognize that we also have the compassion for ourselves that we're not tolerating that behavior. It's not acceptable. And if they don't want to change, that's okay. We're not here to make others change, but we can
Yeah.
change ourselves around that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's a beautiful gift to ourselves.
Yes. Yeah. No, and like that's the plate. Like that's how I had to kind of like talk myself through it. Cause I think, the universe was like, I asked for it, I got it, and I was like, this shit hurts. Like it just, it hurts still, and
Yeah,
not
it does
now,
hurt.
like physically, but like it did for a while. And I just always remember my husband saying, "You're talking about it still. So obviously you didn't forgive him." And I said, "I forgave him for myself. It's still, I wish it was different, but it's not different, and that's okay."
Yeah.
Because till current day, he he doesn't think he did anything wrong. And I said, and that was said to me. And I just said to his family, I said, that's okay. He's never going to think he did something wrong. And like you just said, it's validation on that little boy. that was
Yeah.
constantly told that he was wrong.
Yeah.
And then when they said that, I connected that. I said, well, he's just a little hurt 6-year-old boy inside of him. Obviously, he's not, he's a grown man, but like that I can see and I can have compassion for, but I also have boundaries
Yeah.
like I can still love him, from a distance. And I think that's really powerful because speaking that to, clients that have gone through it, other people that have gone through it, even you now speaking that, it's needs to be talked about more because I think a lot of us hold shame around cutting people off at that time, or you shouldn't cut your family off. Life is short. I see that sometimes on social media. I'm like, what? Like, what? I want to know their perspective on why they feel that way, because it's, again, protecting your peace. It's not closing people out. Like, I do know I've done both sides of boundaries, but like, how can you love people still from a distance and have boundaries? And you don't need to talk to them, I think it's
No.
really
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, 100%. It's interesting too that we're talking about this because there's an article that was in the Wall Street Journal that was trending for a bit because it was essentially this mother saying she wasn't going to be a doormat to her estranged children. And my own mother sent that to me as kind of she likes to do things like that, I'll say. And I'm
Yeah,
thinking, the first thing was I was just like, this is just, you're never going to learn. Like, how, for one, how are you a doormat? I want absolutely nothing to do with you because of
right.
how you've hurt me and my family. And I did still try to.
Yeah,
There's no want for healing. So the attacks that people make, especially on estranged children, don't understand that, especially from an energetic standpoint, how it goes against the grain for a child to not want to speak to their parents. It
right.
takes a lot to get to that point. This is not some flippant decision. It is a final
Yeah,
moment of enough because it's recognizing that I deserve better. Are there circumstances where people are probably toxic as children? Absolutely. So I'm not trying
yeah,
to
sure.
excuse that every single time, but how difficult it is for a child to cut off a parent is you are doing something so incredibly challenging on an energetic level that it actually can make you sick. But when you get to that place of healing, and it's freeing, it's really looking at the other side of it. Do you feel better? Or is your life better? It's like any kind of
Yeah,
breakup, you look at who had the glow up and who didn't. Because the person
right,
who had the glow up, there's usually a reason.
right.
My life got so much better. I have so much peace now that I never had before. I didn't even know life could be this peaceful. Like, oh my gosh, is
Yeah,
this real? So it's really looking at that is like, where is your peace? And know that your peace is worth fighting for and it's worth protecting.
right. Yeah, no. And it's just been a couple months too, but it's so different. Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
when you going back to what you said in the beginning of the conversation of like, why didn't I do this sooner? It's literally, I think at some point I've said that to myself, like, God, why didn't I do this sooner? Like, I put myself through hell for the last 3 years. And here's the thing too, and I know that my husband is having his own healing journey around this too, but I specifically said to him, like, I am going to make this decision for myself. I will respect and know that you can still talk to your father. That's fine. That's okay with me. And he goes, I will never be okay with the way that he speaks to you. And, he has to go and, unpack all of that for himself too, because I often, I recently somebody said, did you tell him not to talk to his father? I said, absolutely not. He makes his own decisions. Like
Hmm.
he can make that decision for himself too. And he did. It was in, obviously influenced by like what had happened to me, but I wanted this to happen. I wanted something to change. And that's what I was asking for, of like something in the dynamic to change that I could just get away. And I didn't obviously know how it was going to happen. I just kept asking that question to the universe. And this is how it happened. I mean, very dramatically, very, everybody's seen it, in the family, like not seen it, but, they asked me, like, oh, what happened? And I just sent screenshots because I don't need to tell about it. And they were like, okay. wow, that escalated. And that was it. And I stopped talking about it because, I think there was some small part of me that wanted everybody to know that what the real truth was, which at the end of the day, I now know that they know how it goes. They know they lived with him. They know how he is, so yeah, the smear
And you know
campaign, I
your
should say.
truth.
Yeah.
But the fact that you know your truth, you accept your truth, and you love
Yeah.
yourself for your truth is the most important in that because there's healing in that. And it's
Right.
not looking at others to make us feel better because, yeah, it would feel better if others behaved better. Yeah. But ultimately, it
Yeah.
comes
No,
down to
true.
us. It really does. I mean, but to your point also about, in these relationships and why we hold out and why we don't do it sooner is because we have hope. And there's nothing wrong with having
Yes.
hope that someone is going to do better and be better, especially when you see the potential that they have it. I've seen you do it. My
Right.
parents are really good to people outside of family. They are like, people would tell me all the time how great my mother is, how great my dad is. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you have no idea. But I didn't say that. I
Go
just said,
live with
yeah,
them and then see
yeah.
it.
But
Yeah.
living with them, growing up with them, having to be, physically, emotionally abused by them on a regular basis, they didn't see that. So I had to deal with the broken parts, but I would hold out for hope for what the world got to
Yeah.
see, that I'd get that more too. And I didn't. And my brother did. They absolutely adore him. My sister didn't, but she didn't have the strength to walk away. She's tried. I know that, but she doesn't have it in her. And that's her journey.
Right.
Um,
Sure.
that that's not, she doesn't need to for me. I needed to for me. And my children are better off because of it, not just me, but them. And to see how much has shifted for them because of that decision to not have that toxicity in their lives, I'm so grateful.
Yeah. Yeah. There's my daughter has said things that, I would always make excuses for, and I don't anymore. And
Oh.
I don't
Yeah,
talk about it and she doesn't ask about it. And because it's just not a constant in her life. So it doesn't matter, like it doesn't matter to her. The people that matter is the ones that show up for her. And I think that
exactly.
goes to show. So hopefully that there isn't any trauma around there. However, if there is, then we'll deal with, like I'll give her tools to kind of like help with that. But, there is, some, as you can imagine,
Yeah.
there was some things there that were, it all started over all of that. Um, so yeah. So
Yeah.
before I was gonna say I could go on and on for this for hours. But as we wrap up here and as people are, healing through these layers, what kind of shifts would you suggest maybe if you are just consistently witnessing them in relationships or, decision making or a sense of self? Like what shifts do you see or do you like consistently witness?
I see a lot of calm start to come in people. And I think that is one thing. I brought up peace earlier because they've now started to recognize what peace feels like. And it's not the idealized version of calm. You're not in this, euphoric state, but
Yeah.
you're working toward it and you're working towards joy and you're working towards happiness in these very authentic forms. It's not forced, it's not pushed. It's just, but it starts with calm because you've now started to calm more. Like, oh, I don't have to react to this. I don't have to defend myself. I don't have to do anything but just allow myself to relax in this. And I feel that and is incredibly empowering and so encouraging because when you get to that point, you're just going to keep growing beyond that. You can't not. You don't just get calm and then you're stagnant. You're calm and now you evolve in this beautiful way. I like to look at it like a lotus flower. You're just like in this beautiful bloom.
Yeah, I love that. And don't we all want to get there? Isn't that ultimately the
Absolutely.
goal?
Yeah,
I know
it's very
me.
it's very phoenix rising from the ashes.
Yes, yes. So that wraps up today's episode on the Enlightened and Misfits podcast. If this conversation resonated and you're recognizing patterns from maybe your own trauma, maybe narcissistic dynamics, maybe inner child wounds, know that nothing is wrong with you and your intuition didn't just disappear. I know that some of us feel like it can feel that way. We are just trying to adapt to survive in the healing path that brings you home. So if you love this episode, please take a moment to subscribe. Make sure you check out all of Chris's links below in the description box if you are watching this over on YouTube. And if you are listening to this, all of her links to connect with her will be in the show notes. And if you're craving for deeper support, community, and embodiment of your energetic blueprint, I'd love to invite you into the Enlightened Misfits Sisterhood as a space for healing, alignment, and building a life and business that honors your nervous system and your soul. Thank you so much for all of your wisdom and doing this work, Chris, and walking this conscious path of healing. I hope you have an amazing rest of your week, and I will see you next week.